So in this video, we're going to talk about first and second declension adjectives. And I'm going to start with the dictionary form of adjectives. Now you know what the dictionary form of adjectives looks like for nouns, right? You know that there's two parts. For God, it would be Deus, Dei, the nominative singular and the genitive singular. And so the nominative and the genitive singulars are used in the dictionary form. So that's what you would get when you look for a word in a dictionary. And you know that the dictionary form tells you all the things you need to know about a word. For example, if you look up pax pachis in the dictionary, which is peace. If you look up peace in the dictionary, you'll see pax pachis. Pax tells you that, okay, I can use the Sachs rule on pax and know that it's a feminine word. And knowing that it's a feminine word would be something you might need to know about that word. And then pachis, you can see what the stem is going to be for all the rest of the words. So that you know that the endings are various is, e, m, a, right? You know that to put those is, e, m, and a on patch, on pac, or pac, and not to put it on pax. You know that it's not paxis, paxi, paxem, paxe, but it's pakis, paki, pakem, pake, or pachem, pache if you're using ecclesiastic. So the dictionary form tells you the stem of all the rest of the words, and it tells you the gender of the word, right? And so those are all important things. So what we're going to start with is, what does the dictionary form of an adjective look like? And so the dictionary form of our first adjective is magnus a And what does magnus a mean? So there's three parts to this dictionary form. Magnus a is just short for magnus, magna, magnum. Where have we seen us, and before? These are the first forms of the first three declensions we learned, or really the first two declensions we learned, because these are both second declension and this is first declension. So these are adjectives of the first and second declension. Okay, so magnus a is just short for magnus, magna, magnum. And magnus, magna, magnum is itself short for magnus and all of these. Magnus, magni, magno, magnum, magno, magni, magnorum, magnis, magnos, magnis. And magna is just short for magna, magni, magni, magna, magna. Don't forget your maker. Magni, magnorum, magnis, magnas, magnis. And magnum is just short for magnum, magni, magno, magnum, magno, magna, magnorum, magnis, magna, magnis. So these are all of the possible endings. Some of them, of course, are the same, right? These are all the possible different endings for first and second declension adjectives. So what does it mean that an adjective belongs to the first or second declension? What it doesn't mean is it doesn't mean that I can't talk about a big king, for example. This word means big, if I didn't say that already. I can talk about a big king. I can use this word to describe a king and say, like, the big king did this, or I see a big king. I can say those things. So it doesn't mean that these adjectives can only be used to describe first or second declension nouns. That's not what it means. It can be, these adjectives can be used to describe nouns of any declension. I could talk about a big harbor, harbor's fourth declension. I could talk about a big battle line. Battle line is a fifth declension word. Okay, well, what it means is that all the possible endings that this adjective could have, it's going to be from the first or second declension. So there's another category of adjectives, which we're not talking about in this video, and those are third declension adjectives. And those adjectives will have endings that are like third declension endings. There's no such thing as fourth or fifth declension adjectives. And so once we get through these two different categories of adjectives, we're done with adjectives. All right. So here are some examples. Okay. Silva magna. A silva is a forest. And let's just pretend that we're talking about a forest in the nominative, like a forest that is the subject of the sentence. So silva magna. And oftentimes, if we're using a first or second declension word, a noun, and a first or second declension adjective, what's often going to happen, not all the time, but what's often going to happen is that you're going to have the word end in the same thing. Silva magna, a big forest. But like I said, it's not always going to happen that way. A nauta magnus is a big sailor. Now, why would Magnus have a different ending than Nauta? Silva had magna. Now that it's a sailor that's big, now when it's a sailor that's big and not a forest, the word for big changed. Why? That's because Nauta is a masculine word. And so I'm using Magnus as my word for big. Okay, before I go over here and show you these two, I want to give you a rule about how to use adjectives in Latin. Okay, here's the rule. Adjectives must agree with their noun. Adjectives must agree with their noun in case, number, and gender. Case, number, and gender. We're going to talk about what that means. Okay? Okay, so I need to know, first of all, the gender of the word that I'm trying to describe. So let's say I have a rex. Now, rex is a third declension word, king. And I want to say the great king. And then here's the rest of my sentence. I'm going to say the great king does something. Okay, so right now we have the great king, and he's the subject of the sentence. So rex is the nominative singular of king. So there's my rex. And then I'm going to put my word for big or great. Same word. Big and great are the same word. Okay. My adjective, whatever, these are all my options for how to say big. Okay. And we're going to dwindle these down. All right. To find the correct word to use. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I want to say, what's the gender of king? So I look at my nominative form. Rex ends in an X. So I'm thinking Sox rule, but then I'm thinking, wait, king is a male, natural gender rule, so a king is a masculine word. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to pick which of the charts to take my word from. So all of this Magnus, Magni, Magno, this first chart, these are masculine words. All of the middle chart are for feminine words. And this other second declension chart, the second declension neuter chart, is for neuter words. Okay, so if the word is a neuter word, we're going to pick from this chart. So since the word is a masculine word, we're going to pick from this chart. Okay, it agrees in gender. Okay, it agrees in gender. Okay, I also need my word to agree in case and number. So that just means which case and which number, which side. So it needs to agree in case and number just means it needs to be from the right spot on the chart. Okay? So where's Rex from on the chart? Well, if this was a chart of the third declension word, if this was a chart of king, of Rex Regis, then Rex would be here. So I need the one from here on the chart. That's the right case, that's the right number. So Rex Magnus. Okay? So Magnus is the word I use with Rex. Okay? So it's not always going to be, we're not always going to use adjectives to describe words that are the subject. We might use adjectives to describe words that are the direct object or words that are in the genitive or things like that. Okay? Maybe we're talking about the land of the big king, right? The land of the king. King would be in the genitive. And if it was of the big king, then the word big would need to be in the genitive as well. Okay, so let's take a look at an example down here. Okay, the land has a great king. The land has a great king. So let's take off great for a second. The land has a king. Okay, so that would be terra regem habet. Why would king be in the accusative? Because the land has a king. King would need to be in the accusative, right? And that's regem. Now, if I want to say the land has a great king, then my word for great needs to be in the accusative as well. Okay? So, what I would need to do first is, what is the gender of king? We know that's masculine, so I need to pick my masculine. Okay, now I need to pick a word that's singular and it's accusative, because the word that it's describing is in the accusative, and the word that it's describing is also singular. So what I need to do is So that's why it says magnum. Terra regem magnum habet. The land has a king. It has a great king. So all adjectives must agree with their noun, the noun that they're describing, in case, number, and gender. Not always the ending, right? Because not always the sound, right? Because this is regem, that's magnum, M and They're not the same, like magna and silva. But that's okay, they still match. Nauta and magnus, they do not look the same, they do not have the same ending. But that's okay. They match in case, number, and gender. All right? So I'm going to take a look at our vocab from this first chunk, and then we're going to try some sentences out. All right? So first word we have is magnus aum. Again, that's short for, we just did magnus aum. Let's skip down to this one, altus aum, which means high or deep. And so, again, altus aum is short for altus, alta, altum. All these possible endings could go for all of these words. Okay? Bonus aum means good, so you could say bona, you could say bonum, or any of these words that come from them. Longus aum means long. Malus aum means bad. Multus aum means many or much. Sanctus aum means holy or saint. Now I want to show you something about sanctus aum too. It means holy, but you could use sanctus, sancti, as the way to say a male saint, or you could use sancta, sancti, as a way to say the noun, a female saint. So even though you're learning a new adjective, you're also learning two new nouns. Okay? And of course, you would decline them the same exact way, but you could use them as nouns in a sentence. And the last one, primus means first. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some sentences. This is exercise 86 in your book. I have the originals all written down for you, and we're going to take a look and translate these. You're just going to do it with me. So here we go. Multi Christiani in prima acie erant. And so I'm going to just underline here the words that are new. Multi and prima. Okay. And so we have Christiani in acie erant. So we could read the sentence without any of the adjectives, and it would still be a sentence. It would just be a sentence where things aren't being described as much. So the Christians in the battle line were in the battle line. But now it's just saying that what is multi? Multi again means many. Multus aum by the way. Okay, so actually I'm not finding multi, but I'm finding multus aum. So multi is just going to be one of those, with one of these endings on it already. We'll try to figure out why that is. We'll try to figure out why it's multi of all the possible endings, and we'll try to see what that means because it's multi and not something else. And then in prima acie, so prima is like primus aum, and so that's first. Okay, so many Christians were in the first battle line, so probably the front battle line. All right, so why is that? Christiani is nominative, right? And plural, and it's also masculine. So if we look at primus aum and we had it all declined out in all three charts, if we're choosing the masculine one, now just pretend instead of magna it says prim. Okay. Okay, well, what's the plural? I ending. And I've chosen from the masculine chart, right? The ones that are like masculine words. So that makes sense. Multi Christiani in prima acie erant. So this one's a little tough because Christiani is a second declension word, and multi and Christiani, they match each other. Because that tends to happen when you have a second declension word with a first or second declension adjective. They tend to just look the same. Acie is a fifth declension word. And what did we learn about fifth declension words? That they were feminine, with a couple of exceptions, but this one's feminine. So also, what case is it in? It's feminine and it's in the ablative case, it looks like. So what word from our feminine chart, the ones that look like first declension, right? What word is ablative and singular? With a macron. So that makes sense. In prima acie erant. So many Christians were in the first battle line. Sancta Maria orat. Okay, Mary is obviously the subject, so it's nominative. We want the nominative. And they're both first declension. First declension noun with a first declension word. So Saint Mary prays, or Holy Mary prays. But you could say Saint Mary prays too. Okay, let's check this one out. Longum agmen in altos montes venit. So an agmen is a column, right? A long column into the high mountains went into the high mountains. So I'm noticing here that this looks like an accusative ending, and this could be an accusative ending. Came into the high mountains. So this is in plus the accusative here. Okay, if the long column was just already in the high mountains, then we would have in montibus, and then you would have an ablative ending in altis montibus. Okay, if it was just already in there, in altis montibus erat. But it's movement. Now it's entering, so now we're using in with the accusative in altos montes. So what is mons montes? Mons montes. What gender? Mons. Sounds. I'm wondering if mons montes was irregular. That's one of those ones we had to, because altos looks like it might be either neuter or can't be neuter, because then it'd be mons montes has to be a masculine word because that's the only thing with os in it, right? Yep, it's the only thing with os, because it's either as for the feminine or the a for the neuter. So we know mons montes has to be a masculine word, and we can't always tell that from the word itself, right? Sometimes we just have to memorize. But if there's an adjective with it and we know it's already correct because the Latin book gave it to us, we can say, oh, mons montes is a masculine word. So there we go. Longum agmen in altos montes venit. Nauta malus non orat. The bad sailor doesn't pray. And why is nauta with an A and malus with an us? It's really masculine in disguise. The adjective will never lie. Okay? Let's look at the fifth one. Dux bonus magnum virtutem militum laudat. Okay, so Dux bonus is a leader, and he's a subject. Bonus looks like, with the US ending, that it's also in the nominative, so we know that it's the leader that's good and not one of these other words that's good, because we see that bonus matches the word that it's describing in gender. Dux is a masculine word. Bonus looks masculine. They're both nominative and they're both singular. So it's very clear that bonus goes with dux. So the good leader praises. And what does he praise? He praises the things that are in the accusative. So this is an adjective. So we can't praise an adjective. Virtutem, courage. He can praise courage. So and militum kind of looks like it's accusative, but this is miles militis is a third declension word. Militum is a genitive plural ending. The accusative would be militem, em, right? Because em is how third declensions do accusative, singular. So, all right. So this is a genitive. So you can't praise a genitive. This is our noun, right? So the good leader praises the courage of the soldier, but what's another word to describe courage? The great courage of the soldier. So virtutis is a feminine word. Does this look feminine? Yep. It's in the accusative because he's praising it. Is this in the accusative? Yep. Singular and singular? Yep. Check, check. Dux bonus magnam virtutem militum laudat. Okay, number 6. In longo agne multi milites et impedimenta sunt. So, looks like these are our two adjectives in this sentence. In longo agmine multi milites et impedimenta sunt. So, in the long column, many soldiers and baggage, much soldiers and baggage. There are much soldiers and baggage. Let's just check to see that our adjectives have the right endings, or let's just check to see why the adjectives have the endings that they do. Okay. So agmen, agmenis. This is a neuter word. Okay. And so if I wanted to find my so I need to find my neuter words. Now in the long column, so that's ablative, right? And agmine is also ablative. So it's neuter, it's also ablative. Okay, neuter, ablative, longo agmine, makes sense. In longo agmine multi milites et impedimenta sunt. So these milites are masculine, I would presume. And there are many of them, so that's nominative. Okay, this is the subject of our sentence. And impedimenta is also another subject of our sentence because there are both of these things. So this is our subject. It should be nominative. It looks like that's nominative plural, though. Okay. And what gender is impediment? Impedimenta, impedimentorum. It's neuter. And so here's another thing. Here's another rule. We have one adjective that's describing both a masculine word and a neuter word. Uh-oh, two different genders. We're just going to stick with the masculine for this. Okay? Masculine is going to win out over any other genders. Does that surprise you? That's just how it is. So it's not a problem because both are plural, right? Impedimenta is a baggage, but it's a plural word. So is milites. They're both in the nominative, but as far as the genders, they're different. A neuter and a masculine's going to win out. So let's just make multi match milites and not really worry about impedimenta, okay? So, all right, masculine, okay, this chart, nominative, and the plural, multi. So multi milites et impedimenta sunt. All right, and that is the entire lesson 86. So you have your answers for all of lesson 86. All right, and then what you'll have to do in the future is start with English and write your Latin. All right, valete.